The House Where Clefairy Cried. The mountain didn't like visitors. That's what the old hikers said about Mount Moon, its caves swallowing those who wandered too deep, never spitting them back out. But Wren didn't believe in ghost stories. He believed in facts, maps, and the thrill of uncovering places no one else dared to explore. That's why he was standing here now, staring at a structure that shouldn't exist. A mansion, tucked deep within the cavernous heart of Mount Moon, beyond the well-trodden paths of trainers and tourists. Wren had found it. A sprawling, decayed relic of a forgotten time. Its walls were suffocated by thick vines, its windows dark and cracked like broken eyes. The front door hung ajar, as if waiting for him. His flashlight flickered as he stepped inside. The air was stale and thick with dust. Wren's boots echoed against the warped wooden floorboards as he swept the light across faded wallpaper and shattered picture frames. The place looked like it had been abandoned for decades, furniture overturned, glass shards glittering like broken stars, but there was no dust on the floor, no cobwebs in the corners. Someone or something had been here recently. Wren's heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. Urban legends had drawn him here. The House Where Clefairy Cried, they called it. A place where trainers heard soft, mournful sobbing in the dead of night, said to belong to a Clefairy searching for its lost family. Of course, Wren didn't believe that nonsense. He was here for something real. He found it on the second floor. A door, oddly pristine compared to the decay around it, with a faded brass plaque. Laboratory wing, authorized personnel only. Wren's curiosity burned hotter than his fear. He pushed it open. The lab was a graveyard of forgotten technology, broken monitors, rusted machinery, shattered test tubes. But amidst the ruin, Wren found something chilling, a series of dusty glass tanks lining the walls. Some were cracked, others shattered entirely, but one remained intact. Inside floated the remains of a Clefairy. Its body was pale and bloated, suspended in murky fluid, wires tangled around its limbs like restraints. Its eyes were still open. Wren stumbled back, bile rising in his throat. His flashlight flickered again, and for a heartbeat, he thought he saw something move in the reflection of the glass. A shadow that wasn't his. Then he heard it. A soft, pitiful sobbing. He spun around, light darting across the room, but there was no one there. Just the Clefairy, lifeless and floating. But the crying didn't stop. It grew louder, more desperate, echoing off the walls until it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Wren fled. Down the hall, past empty rooms and rotting doors, heart pounding like a drum. But the mansion shifted around him. Corridors stretched impossibly long, doors led back to places he'd already been, and the crying never stopped. It burrowed into his mind, scratching at the fragile walls of his sanity. Finally, he burst into what must have been the master bedroom. He slammed the door shut, breath ragged, flashlight shaking in his grip. That's when he saw the journal. Old, leather-bound, sitting untouched on a dusty nightstand. Against every instinct screaming for him to run, Wren opened it. The journal belonged to Dr. Lysa Rowan, a Pokémon researcher who once worked for Sylph Co. The entries detailed experiments on Clefairy, studies into how moonlight affected their evolution, their psychic abilities, their connection to something called lunar resonance. But the entries grew frantic over time. The Clefairy's cries won't stop, even when sedated. Subject 03 refuses to respond. We increase the light exposure. Still nothing. I hear them when I sleep. They're inside my head. It's not the Clefairy crying anymore. The final entry was a shaky scrawl. The moon is inside the house. Wren dropped the journal, his breath visible now in the freezing air. The crying had stopped. Silence. Then a whisper, soft and close. Why did you leave me? Wren turned slowly. It was standing in the corner, a Clefairy. But not like any Wren had seen before. Its skin was grey, stretched taut over brittle bones. Its eyes were hollow, weeping black tears that left trails down its face. It stared at him with an expression not of rage, but of grief, so raw it made his chest ache. Wren stumbled back, but there was nowhere to go. The Clefairy stepped forward, its mouth opening wider than it should have, distorting, trembling with a voice that was not its own. Stay with me. The search team found the mansion weeks later, after Wren's disappearance sparked a brief investigation. They found his flashlight, his backpack, even his journal detailing everything he'd discovered. but they never found Wren. Just a single Pokeball left on the floor, cracked and empty. Sometimes, when the moonlight hits Mount Moon just right, hikers claim to hear soft sobbing echoing from deep within the caves. They say it sounds like a Clefairy, but others say it sounds like a man, crying to be let out. The end.